Samope, Sampa Bietia, Chimafidi non kotu, era one radio. Samope, Jumpa Bietia, Chimafidi non kotu, era one radio. Oh, and you punctua, Asam punctua.
They are four women. They are beautiful with brains. They are eloquent, decent, wise, and experienced. You have heard many, the funny. Now, it's time to hear the experience and the brainy. Meet Selena, Dorcas, Gifty, and Annette as they present the real in common getting. In common BISS chain, as in Takrenu assume the real in common getting. Showing live this and every Sunday, 7 p.m. on Era One Radio on Facebook and on YouTube, Era One Radio and on Taibo channel. Kaise, so we see the real in common getting ya. What brabon tete? We nyan konkonsa. We the real in common getting.
Hello. Good evening, Era One Radio listeners and viewers all over the world. I don't know what time it is in your vicinity, your hood, your country, whatever it is, but here in the US, it's 6:03 p.m. September 4th, 2025. We are broadcasting live on Facebook, YouTube, and also on Modern Ghana Radio. Well, for some time now, we've been looking at our Thursday programs on the Divine Connection Show. We've been looking at Abraham's call. Abraham, initially, Abraham, later on. The call that he received from God, and we've been deliberating and finding out, can somebody receive a call, an order, a mandate from God, and disobey without knowing, or disobey and have repercussions, or disobey and God lets him loose? We are trying to find out. You realize that sometimes we do a repetition of this program, not because we don't have anything to do, but because it has a message that all of us have to glean and adapt it and use it for our contemporary times, because as Pastor Kron would say, we are not just a spiritual entity here. This Bible teaches us physical things too, outside divinity. So we are applying both the humanity and divinity. Tonight, we want to revisit Abraham's call. Did Abraham obey totally the call of God? Were there any conditions to the call? What were the blessings that God gave him? And how did it end with Abraham? Did the disobedience cause a prolongedness in he having a child? Or it was just per chance? We'll find out tonight. All right, Pastor Kron, you are welcome, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any greetings? Any warm-ups?
They say Ghana's dollar is the worst performing currency in the world now.
Oh, are you sure? I mean, I know it's gone to almost 12, but wasn't it just about 3 months ago, 6 months ago that...
He said it was the best, and then now it is the worst, according to Bloomberg. Today, Ghana's cedi is the worst performing currency in the whole world.
How is that even possible?
That's what it is, and it's a cause for concern. What is happening to the managers of the economy? What are they doing? What are the possible effects of such a situation? So some of us are still praying, and hopefully God will listen to our prayer and do something about our motherland Ghana.
This is funny because a few months ago they said, oh, the Mahama administration have done so well to arrest the dollar, the cedi is appreciating, and the opposition MPP said, oh, they haven't done anything. It's just because they are not paying workers, and it's because of Trump's tariffs. So now we don't know what to attribute it to. Maybe, well, like you said, We have to pray for God intervene and also give our leaders the wisdom to counteract this issue. All right. Well, let me for those of who are just joining us, we've been looking at Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 5, and on this platform, somebody and some of us prefer the King James version. So I will read Genesis chapter 12, 1 to 5. Sometimes we go to
Actually, Genesis
11,
31 to 30.
11:31. We'll go back a little bit and see what Moses told us concerning the story about Abraham when he relocated. So let me go back to 28, 29 there about, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. 29. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarah was barren, she had no child. 31. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, his son Abraham's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Nobody knows why that happened. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. All right, so when we go to chapter 12, verse 1, this is what it says. Now the Lord has said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation. And I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarah his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. All right, so Prof, I know from verses 2 down, the 12 talks about God reminding Abraham that he had told him to leave his father's house and all that stuff. But the verse 2 going down gives us the blessing that God had mentioned concerning Abraham. So would we say these blessings were conditional? Were they contingent upon something?
Yeah, I mean, from the way the author has presented the facts, Dr. Boison, it does seem as if the blessings were conditional, right? Because the commands, these were not suggestions. These were commands from a higher authority like God. And the commands were, leave your country, leave your kindred, which means your relatives or your cultural group. Leave your father's house and go to a land that I will show you. So obeying these commands will be the means for the promises, 7 of them, to become realities. The question is, did Abraham obey all the commands? And
Pastor Kwan, why is it written that as a condition? There are conditions attached to the blessings.
Yeah. I mean, it's the way the blessings have been, or the text has been structured, right? And because of the fact that they are commands enjoin somebody to do something, right? And if the person doesn't do what the command asks for, there are repercussions or consequences. And because of that, the consequences are conditioned upon obedience of whatever commands that are there. You getting me? Because a command is like a law, and a law has recommendations, and it also has stipulations. So if the law asks you to do something, or it injuncts you from doing something, and you do it, then there are consequences or penalties to be paid. And therefore, the conditions can be, in fact, persuasively argued because of the fact that these were not mere suggestions, but veritable commands. You getting me? So
Yes, sir.
the blessings that were pronounced must also necessarily be based on obeying the commands. That's the bottom line. Again, an author doesn't again specifically write explicitly that this is what I mean or not. The author can actually structure the text, and the text would, in actual fact, also talk about the mode of obedience, the mode of execution, and then the punishment or the consequences of non-execution, or call it violation. So that's where we are, right? And as I said, there are 7 promises. God made 7 promises, right? Those promises cannot come to fruition if obedience is first not exercised. That's the bottom line. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Pastor Crum. I just took some minute to look at, go beyond the fight to and find out the blessings or what actually could come with the blessings or the disobedience of Abraham hidden to the core. But if you look at, I mean, later I realized that God did appeal to Abraham. And then 7, he told
Yeah.
him that unto thy seed will I give this land. So if there was a disobedience,
Mhm.
why would God still go ahead in verse 7 and still declare blessing that I will give this to your seed and all that? I mean, what is missing here?
Okay. If you look at that text, you realize that at this point, one, Abraham was in the promised land,
Promised
that's
land.
Canaan,
Okay.
which actually will fulfill command 4. Second,
Okay.
he had parted ways with Lot, which will satisfy command 2.
Hmm.
Right? And so the, the obedience, because those specific acts constituted obedience, God could come in and activate the blessings. And that's what we see here.
All right. So before we proceed, what is the case of Sarai? Is Sarai a kindred? Is she a relative? What?
Yes, and that's where the argument is. In fact, most people will be more than willing to agree readily that by taking Lot, Abraham violated the second command. But what of Sarah, right? People can present persuasive arguments that Sarah was the wife. And I think you yourself, you've made that argument before, that if Sarah was the wife and God also was the same person who instituted marriage, right? Asking Abraham to ditch Sarah will be counter to what God had said with respect to marriage,
Marriage. That's true.
right? But the question is, Dr. Boison, we also have to go back and ask, what was the nature of the marriage between Abraham and Sarah? What arguments could we adduce there, right? And what possible findings could we make? And then ask whether Sarah could actually be in the class of relatives and therefore will be expected to not go with Abraham, because God made no accommodation in the commands. So that's an argument to be made. And as far as I'm concerned, Sarah was Abraham's kindred. And therefore, going with Sarah, right, could be a violation in the sense that the unspoken reason or the unstated reason for God asking Abraham to move away from his kindred is precisely because of the nature of the marriage between Sarah and Abraham, two close relatives, right? Which could actually lead to all kinds of problems. Because we would like Sarah would actually make us know that Abraham indeed was her senior brother, because they are the same father, according to Sarah. So why would they be married? And therefore, I would argue that by God asking Abraham to move away from his kindred, it could be an indirect way of resolving the taboo that Abraham and Sarah's marriage may actually turn out to be. And so, by still taking Sarah, in spite of what God said, that would constitute a violation. That's my argument.
Wasn't God putting Abraham in a situation, a very critical situation, to decide whether he could take Sarah or not? Because I mean, you've explained thoroughly, but here is somebody who has been engaged, married to the woman, and how do you? I mean, if it were you, what reason were you going to give Sarah to not go with her?
No, but that's why I said, but the nature of the marriage was problematic in the first place. An uncle marrying the niece, right? The marriage looks too incestuous, too close. So, yeah, too close. And it could actually smack of, seriously, Abraham taking advantage of Sarah, right? Because it will be a taboo. Let's put it that way. It will be a taboo because of the proximity of one to the other in terms of the familial line. And it is too close for comfort. So again, God, by asking Abraham to move away from his kindred, that could be God's way of actually locating Abraham outside the place where Sarah would actually have her influence. Yet Abraham would not budge. Abraham would take Sarah with her, in addition to Lot. And that actually presents another problem, because we know that from the text, we believe that Sarah was the same as the woman named Iscah, right? And Sarah, therefore, was the son of Abraham's older brother, Haran. You getting me?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And if Sarah was the older brother, Haran was the older brother of Abraham, and Haran was the father of Sarah and Lot, a picture begins to emerge that Abraham will have Lot to deal with, because Sarah will be pulling strings on behalf of her brother, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So by God asking Abraham to leave his kindred, right, it will be a way for multiple problems to be solved by just one action. Are you getting me?
Yes,
That
sir.
would be that would be very economical, right? By way of the cost of action, right? By Abraham moving from his kindred, right? He would be free from the shackles of family, right? And he could do whatever he needed to do without always having to look behind his shoulder, right? Secondly, uh, it will be a way for this taboo marriage to be finally let
No.
go. Yeah, yeah. So a lot rides on that fact.
It's funny how you would think of God having this in mind, that this is what I want you to do, but I don't want to tell you directly that this is I want you to do. I want you to be wise and do it. For instance, I mean, going a little bit outside the text, if you consider the situation where Samuel was asked to go and anoint a king, whilst what is it, Saul was still alive. I mean,
Mhm,
God wanted to actually overthrow Saul, but he did
mhm.
it in a diplomatic way, asking Samuel to go and perform a sacrifice. And that is how he was able to anoint David. I mean, it's like, okay, this is what I want you to do, but I don't want to say it directly to that. Go and do it. So you come and give me the reason. But I'm just
Yeah,
asking to use your brain, your senses to
yeah, yeah. God
conduct
wanted
it.
to stage a coup. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's put it bluntly. So he was being diplomatic
Well,
about that because it could actually unleash an upheaval, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. So that will be in literature we call it euphemism, an euphemistic way of saying
carrying
something
out,
that could actually be potentially
backfired
dangerous or
on you.
damaging, right? So that's what it is, and that's what I believe that God, by asking Abraham to leave his not only his country but his kindred, right? God may be trying to resolve the problem quietly. Yet Abraham maybe didn't catch on to what God's intent was and still carried Rebecca with him. Hence the childlessness.
This is no, I mean, that phrase you mentioned is what some theologians also don't believe, that Sarah's childlessness was due to as a result of Abraham's disobedience. I mean, you've said it several times, that showing and not telling. But
Yes.
I still find it a little bit too complex to come to the conclusion that Abraham disobeying God is what led to that. I mean, it's still,
Yeah, yeah. Dr. Boyson, marry we know that close relatives marrying, right, would present certain problems by itself.
but this was
Right?
allowed. This was allowed way before Sarah came to the scene. I mean, when
Now,
people
why is it
intermarry,
written that it was allowed?
well,
No, if you give me facts
I'm trying
to
to think
support
about
that
I'm
claim,
trying to think about some examples to give you, but I know God did not frown on this until it appeared in the Ten Commandments and the laws that were given to Moses, that you shall not have really incest and all that are sinful and
yeah,
all. But
yeah, yeah. So,
but before
so
that,
mhm.
but I just have before that, looks like I just have to look for some concrete evidence to present to you, Professor. But I believe that until that time, I think they were doing it. I mean,
No, no. We all suspect it, but we cannot actually make it a mainstream point because there are no facts to support it, even though there is a strong suspicion that that was the case, right? But because we don't have additional facts that will help us to really present a credible argument to justify it, right? We normally will not go there.
So this brings my mind to another issue, that it is not all marriages that God bless or God initiates. True or false? Did you hear me, Prof? Pastor Con, did you hear me?
Uh-huh.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I heard you.
Well, you froze on me, so I didn't hear what you were trying to say.
Oh, okay. Okay. You can ask your question again.
Yeah, what I was saying is that from what transpired, I mean, I'm opined to say that it is not every marriage that God blesses or God initiates or God allows. Like we say in our modern contemporary times that oh, you pray and God will give you your wife or husband or all that stuff. But if you look at Abraham and Sarah's case, it's like God didn't bless Sarah from Abraham.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Boyce, let's look at, I mean, the is it right for an uncle to marry the niece? Is it right?
Well, if the girl is beautiful and you want her in those
No,
days,
no,
it was
no.
like,
Is it right?
I mean,
That's the question.
biological, scientifically, incest and all that diseases, communicable disease that can easily be passed through
Yeah. So,
genes and
so
hereditary is not good. I mean, that's why
yes.
God later revised stuff.
No, no. And don't forget, it was so from day one. But the point is, there are times when certain practices may be permitted, right? Because better course of actions were not available, right? But when those better conditions prevail, why would you go back to the costly practices, right? And an example would be that, listen, Adam and Eve, at one time, they were the only couple, and they had given birth to two sons, right, and daughters, Cain and Abel, and daughters. So necessarily, for God's command, go ye out and be fruitful and populate the earth, right? For that to be done, because of the situation, the prevailing situation where these were the only humans available, yes, one could actually literally make the claim that Cain's wife was his sister, because those were the only humans available living on the earth, right? So that accommodation could be made. But between Cain and Abraham, how many years would have passed? Over close to 1,000 years, right? And so a lot of women would be available. Why would you go for your niece?
Well, if you look at it critically, the gene pool is still there. They all came from the same father and mother. I mean, no matter
No,
how.
no. At the end of the day, everybody comes from Adam and Eve. But how many generations are we removed from Adam, such that the number of generations that separate us from Adam, right? A lot of biological evolutions or metamorphoses could have taken place, right, to mitigate the the potential dangers of hereditary. I mean, marriage between close relatives. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Right. So, Cain, we could accommodate. Then we have the case of Noah and his children. We could accommodate, right? But between Noah's time and Abraham, right, 350 years will pass, which will be enough for multiple things to happen, including women that will be a bit far from Abraham's gene pool, right? So that it will be okay for Abraham to marry one. Why would you go to your brother's daughter. That's the whole point. And so again, God wanting to solve the problem, right? That problem of marrying, close relatives marrying, by asking Abraham to leave the sin, and yet Abraham going with Sarah, the very problem that God may have intended to resolve went with them. Are you not getting the point, Glenn? Because the problem was not location bound. The problem was tied to the people involved, not the location. Is that making sense?
Yeah. So by
So
God asking
wherever,
him to leave,
so wherever Abraham will go with Sarah, the problem
was still
will be
there.
there, right? And so that takes us to the point where, yet the fact that Abraham relocated from Ur to Haran, he may have obeyed the first command, but when you add it to this situation of taking close relatives with him and then relocating from Ur to Haran, that second command where the behavior doesn't actually rhyme with the dictates of the command, that will spell disobedience in capital letters. And if disobedience is established, with the command, with the promise, right, be fulfilled? No, because one of the commands says, in you shall all the families of the earth be blessed, right? Which is to say, your own seed, right, will populate the earth, and then the blessing will flow from you to them. But here is a case where you don't have a child. How is that promise going to materialize? And that's what makes the promise conditional. You agree?
I do. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's our point.
So that's the
Disobedience.
conditionality.
Huh?
That is the conditionality.
That's what makes this a conditional argument, right? And if then argument. If Abraham obeys, then the promise will kick in. So if Abraham disobeys, do we expect the promise or promises to kick in?
Let me go back to the two again, and I'll make thee a great nation, and I'll thee and make
Mm-hmm.
thy name great, and that shall be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll bless them that
Mm-hmm.
bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee, and in thee shall
Mm-hmm.
all families of the earth. So Abram
Yes.
departed as the Lord had spoken on him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75
Yes.
years old when he departed out of Haran.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Abraham took Sarah his wife and Lot his brother's son and all their substance that they had gathered and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. Dr. Boison, these are additional facts to make us understand, right? Because Dr. Boison, look at it, look at something carefully, right? If Abraham went with Sarah, with Lot, with the servants, and with his father, don't forget everything, every place that Abraham will go, each of these people will go with him. Are you getting the picture clear?
Yes, sir.
Right? And they are going to influence what Abraham could do or could not do. True or false?
That's true. Yeah.
Did God, I mean, if one was God, would one be happy if some elements are making it tougher or harder for his command to be obeyed? Right? Don't you think so? Would
Yeah,
God be
I
happy
do.
about that? Yeah,
No, he
so
won't.
that's the way we present the argument that yeah, God may not have reacted. Nowhere in the text has the author told us that God showed his displeasure here and there, but the fact that God hasn't said anything explicitly does not mean that God is happy with the situation, right? And as far as we know, that until the separation between Adam and Lot came, right? God didn't show up. Why wouldn't God show up when Abraham had carried out the mandate to actually relocate to Canaan and he was here? Why didn't God show up until Abraham and Lot had parted ways? Right? Which means they should have parted ways right in air.
Oh, the child is okay.
That's the bottom line. Because by Abraham going, and don't forget, the Bible said their parting was not a
Pleasant
smooth
one.
one.
That's true.
It was acrimonious. The Bible will report that the herdsmen of Lot's flock and the herdsmen of Abraham's flocks were at loggerheads.
Duking it out.
You getting me? Would this have arisen if Abraham had not taken Lot with him? Are you not getting the picture clear? And if Lot was the older brother of Sarah, right? Can't you see Sarah's influence in compelling Abraham to take Lot along with him?
Mm-hmm. I mean,
You
yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Just that Abraham was in a very fixed situation where, you
well,
know,
why? But this is a command from God, not from man. This is a command from God. Do you obey a command from such a a higher authority based on your personal feelings? Are you getting the picture clear?
yeah, I do.
This is Almighty God, and He has specifically instructed you to do something. Are you going to consider your personal circumstances before doing what God has asked you to do?
It is not easy.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll look at. I mean, of course, we've looked at the conditionality already, but we'll look at how these things apply to our contemporary times and what we can
Okay.
glean from. Just a second.
C'est mon père, ça me fait bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio. C'est mon père, tu me fais bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio. Oh, and you pam chima, chim, asam pam chima.
Well, you are listening to Era One Radio Studio, and this is the Divine Connection Show. Well, let me pull your legs a little bit. It's been said, or it's been found scientifically, that if you listen to Era One at least once a week, you lower your blood pressure by about 5 points, and you extend your lifespan by almost 10 years. So, for those of you who are not listening to Era One, I would just encourage you to listen to Era One. Well, we are still broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube, also on Modern Ghana Radio. We are looking at Abraham's call. Was there any disobedience? Were there any repercussions? Did he suffer for disobeying God partially? Or what were the conditions that were attached to his blessings? Now, let's look at, we've already looked at the conditionality. But Pastor Kon, how does Abraham's story reflect in our contemporary times? Now, let's go deeper. I mean, what can our listeners learn from? How does it apply to us in modern days? What are we supposed to eschew from? And what will make us be more obedient to God? receive all the blessings that come with it.
Yeah, Dr. Boison, we have this saying that the stories of the Bible are not necessarily historical, they are experiential. It's not about what happened, but what happens. So Abraham's story captures the life of a typical individual. If God places a demand on your life, are there things you can do or are there things you must not do? And if you do what you must not do and you don't do what you must do, are there repercussions? Are there consequences? Those are the facts we have to deal with. And another thing, Dr. Boyson, if you look at the commands, you realize we can actually equate it to what we call in modern transaction, right? The present value of future gains. What would it cost you today in order to reap a particular future? When you go to borrow money from the bank, right? What the bank will do with the interest they slap on you is to look at the $5 you are trying to borrow, right? And say, 10 years from now, how much would that $5 be worth? Are you getting me? And then they slap you with that interest because the current value of the $5 must be worked out based on what is the future value. So I take the future and I work the worth of that future, the value of that future in today's currency. Are you getting me? In the same vein, Abraham's promise was in the future based on an action that is carried out immediately. Is that making sense?
Yes, sir.
And so if the action today devalues the value that is likely to accrue 10 years from now, do you think that that will be a tolerable situation?
Definitely not.
Thank you, sir. So if you read verse 2 and 3, that's where Genesis chapter 12, verse 2 and 3, God makes 7 promises. And they are, I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee. I will make thy name great. And you shall be a blessing. I will bless anybody who blesses you. I will curse anybody who curses you. In you shall all families of the earth be blessed. These are the 7-fold promises God made to Abraham. What I will. Something in the future. To do now that will activate the future blessing to become part and parcel of your life. It's as simple as that. So if you don't do that which are the requirements, do you think the blessings will kick in?
No.
And so the point we are making is, if you look at the blessings themselves, you realize that the actions Abraham performed or Adam took, like going with somebody God had indicated must not go with him, what will be the price? Would the condition for the promise be fulfilled by taking somebody who actually belongs to the class of people that the Bible terms relatives. Are you getting the point there?
I am.
Yeah, and so if the persons Abraham took would belong to the class of people that Abraham must not go with, would that be obedience or disobedience?
That would be disobedience.
And if there was disobedience, would you expect the promise to come to pass? Are we getting the picture clear?
Yeah, I'm getting
So
it. Yeah.
the blessings were conditional. Period. Did Abraham violate? Most likely. Did he pay a price? Yes. His father himself was an outlier in terms of how old he lived before he became a father. His father was an outlier because he lived to be 70 years old before giving birth to his first son, Haran. Meanwhile, if you go back to the text from Genesis chapter 11, verse 1, Genesis chapter 11, verse 11 down, you realize that, listen, everybody between the age 29 to 35 to 34 had given birth. Everybody had given birth, his ancestors. Everybody between age 29 to 35 had given birth. And his father doubled that number from 35 to 70, and he became an outlier. How come the man God said, I will bless you, and in you shall all nations be blessed, will wait 86 years?
So in our modern times, what will be our kindred, our country? Would it be exactly the same mapping?
No, well, if you go to that, or if a practitioner or somebody living at the time, his understanding of country may be different from our understanding of country. But our understanding of country is still valid because now we are dealing with territorial space.
Okay.
Right? And the picture we are getting is that Haran and Er belong to the same geographical space, possibly one country, right? And if it was one country, then the cultural practices were likely to be similar or the same, at least similar, right? And maybe there was something there that God wanted to take Abraham from. And Doc, I can give you a few examples. Take Isaac.
Okay.
When he was ready to marry, Abraham asked his servant to go back to the very place that God had asked him to move.
Why would he do that? Why did he do that?
Well, he did that. He did that. And the Bible will tell us in Genesis 25 that they were married for 20 years and Rebecca wasn't giving birth.
Okay, this makes sense.
And then look at Isaac's own son. By age 77, he hadn't given birth, but found himself in the very place God asked Abraham to live. And look at the woman he really married, which was Rachel, not Leah, right? He married Rachel. What happened to Rachel in childbirth? Didn't she also suffer barrenness.
Until Joseph came, yeah.
Yeah. So the Bible is giving us some hints that, listen, marrying close relatives is not the way to go. But an interesting description of each of the women involved will tell you something. Dr. Boison, Sarah was described as fair. Rebecca was described as fair.
Beautiful.
Rachel was described as fair. All three had problems with childbirth.
And their fair meaning they were beautiful. Beautiful, but
And so God was asking them, at least through Abraham, she may be fair, but that doesn't mean you should have it.
that chick might be beautiful, but you can't have it.
Yeah. Because not because you don't have what it takes or whatever, but it is too close. Beautiful, but it comes with problems. Beautiful, but unproductive.
The young men who are contemplating marriage, you got to be very careful. Don't just look on the outside. Not just the outside.
You get me? And as we said, God may with this command maybe trying to kill multiple birds with the same stone. Abraham, if you leave your country to where God is sending you, and you don't take your relatives away with you, you'll be far away from their influences.
Pastor, the problem I have is it looks as if Abraham had some issue about discernment or knowing exactly what God wanted.
Yeah. He was human. He was human. In fact, that's what the Bible is trying to tell us. What happened to Abraham happens to humans. And that's what we mean by the Bible deals with experiential and not historical realities.
But I mean, despite Abraham's mistakes, humans as we are, we still make some of this. So what is the underlying now? How do we discern? I mean, it's about discernment. How do we fully discern? Because Abraham's days are gone, and these days, as believers, let me just go back to this question. Paul says something like we should not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Is it one of the conditions or a kind of mapping to what happened in Abraham's days? Is that one of the issues? I mean, being yoked with unbelievers, but at the same time, we are supposed to show love to even unbelievers or people we don't think belong to our fold. So it becomes a dicey issue where you are trying to be nice and follow this command, but there's also something that is pulling you not to go to this direction.
It's always the case, but you always have to deal with the context, right? It wasn't as if there were no women to be married.
They wanted to keep everything in the family, I believe.
Yeah, and that may not be the design of God. That's the bottom line. You are dealing with God, right? But again, Dr. Boison, the takeaway is that we must be careful to carry out exhaustively what God commands us to do. Because if we don't, God may not come and stand in front of you with fire coming out of his nostrils and ears, right? But the consequences that go with the violation may well be a fact in your life. Is that clear?
Yeah, it's clear. It's clear, but I think let me just go back to the issue of hearing from God, discerning God's voice to totally obey his commandment, not partially, but completely. Yeah. In Abraham's case, we realize that either he didn't have the opportunity to ask God for clarification, or he assumed he understood the mission and went
Mm-hmm.
about doing it anyway, anyhow. But fast forward to our generation, our contemporary times, we are not we are no longer in the Abraham days. We as believers have the Holy Spirit, and so
But
discerning
that
the voice
doesn't
of
mean God has not ceased to be God.
He is, but it looks as if there is still an issue of properly, critically analyzing what God wants from us or obeying the commandment in totos. I mean, that is the issue because we have
When
problems and we have scammers in the world and they will still do what they want to do. If you are not
Dr.
discerning,
Boison,
they will swallow.
God speaks or says what he wants, and he means what he says. Right? That's what we must remember about God. That he means what he says, and he says what he means. Right? And so it is really not up to you to decide whether God is worth obeying or not. If you violate what he's asked you to do, there will be consequences. That's the bottom line. He asked Adam, don't eat of that tree. Adam and Eve ate. What happened? Did they die?
They didn't die physically, but eventually, I mean, they died
No, they
spiritually.
died now. At least 930 years later, they died. They died. Adam died.
Maybe he thought he was going to die that very day.
Well, nowhere in the text did God say he will die immediately.
I know.
He said, you shall surely die.
One day, one day.
Yeah. Sure, that there, it will visit you. You will not escape it. Whether it takes 1,000 years or 1,000,000 years.
You surely
Did Abraham realize that? Maybe on his deathbed 930 years later.
But that was even a stretch. I mean, from when God told you, you shall surely die, and he lived all the way to 930 years, that was a long time.
But did it happen?
Yeah, it did. I mean, that goes to confirm that when God says 1,000 years is a day and a day is 1,000 years, that's what it means. Adam
Yeah.
was looking at it, oh, I did it, so tomorrow, God, am I going to die? If he had a will, he would have set his house in order. But God was counting 1,000 years as a day, so the 930 was not even nothing to him. Ultimately, you would die. Maybe if he hadn't eaten, then it would be eternity. We'll be here for eternity. But Number ate it, and surely he died.
Yeah.
Whether it was instantaneous or years after,
Yeah. Yeah.
he kicked the bucket.
Yeah. So don't joke with God. When God speaks, carry out what he demands. It is in your interest to execute his commands. Because if he makes promises, the promises are contingent upon the execution of the commands. True or false?
True, but how about those who say, okay, they are not believers, they are not Christians, they don't use the Bible as a manual.
Dr.
If
Boison,
if they are not
Dr. Boison,
if they are
you
not
can
being
you can decide to say, I don't believe that fire burns. That's your prerogative. Go and put your hand in fire.
no,
And then
I'm just saying that not many people can come and tell you, oh, God told me to relocate. And right now there are many voices, and someone say, oh, that was a demonic voice, that was your own spirit. That there are so
yeah.
many voices. So you can be able to decipher and distinguish clearly what God is telling you versus all the voices. Somebody will say, okay, I didn't hear God. I mean, what am I going to do? What instruction do I go by? So these are
So
all intricate issues that people look at.
the question becomes, how does God speak to you? You, the individual.
Very
What is your
subjective.
experience with God? Are you getting me? And don't forget, there were thousands of people in Abraham's time, and God chose Abraham. So Abraham must have had a special relationship with God. right? And God chose him and asked him to do certain things. If God didn't place that demand on me, then that's fine. But if he places that demand on you, you are hooked.
This life.
Look, Dr. Watson, let our audience know that we are taking the trouble to really trash out all the things in this. Nobody will actually I dare say Abraham was disobedient. After all, he's been called the father of faith, right?
The friend of God.
But we are saying that, listen, the same father of faith at some point was going to die of what? Disappointment. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we ask ourselves, what really caused it? If God meant what he said, why did Abraham come to such a pass? Are you getting me? And so we want to make sense of the text now. What really? And so we cannot just let it go that God made such promises and Abraham will become a worse outlier than his father when it came to procreation. Are you getting me? Because the promises then will not make sense. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, as scholars, we want to now try to probe what may be hidden within the lines of the text. And I am arguing that, listen, some facts are hidden in the text that we could use to prop our claims. And my claim number one is that Abraham at least didn't wholly, exhaustively obey the commands given him. Because one, he was to leave his country. He left Ur and relocated to Haran. Haran and Ur were both located in Mesopotamia. And if we are to understand the word country, even in our modern world, Haran and will belong to the same country. So
Well, don't blame Abraham too. He didn't have Uber money, so he just got to Haran and say, "Lord, I'm tired. I don't have
you
Uber money
can't
to
obey
continue."
God and say certain things. God has spoken. God was clear in the statements he made. And Abraham, if he had his chance to ask for clarification and he didn't, right? We are to learn from him that, hey, when God speaks to you and you think you have problems with understanding the dimensions, the boundaries of of whatever God may ask, then ask God for clarification. Don't just take it into your hands and say, this is the way I am going to carry it out. Perhaps the way you think you could carry it out may violate what God is asking. And with violation comes what? Consequences.
Punishment. That is true. I think that also extrapolates to the way we interpret scripture. If you are reading the scripture, you just can't say, okay, I'm taking this, I'm going to take this and leave out this. If you are really going to follow and live as a believer, then you have to go to the totality, the whole 9 years, that this is what the Lord requires of us, and we have to obey. So if you are going by this principle that obey and execute the command and receive the blessings, then we have to go the full speed and the full year, because you can't just uh, commit half and think that the blessings will come just because you decided to do half. And so, Lord, you see, I tried, I did well, I did half. So yeah, but God doesn't do that. I believe God believes in the scientific law of all or nothing law. Either you're obeying all completely, or you are out. There is no better ground. There is no gray area. Go to the max or don't go at all.
And Dr. Boison,
Yes, sir.
I want to make, unless of course you have something to say,
No, go
I
ahead.
want to make a point from the same facts, right? You realize that God told Abraham, leave your father's house.
Yes.
Do you realize that in carrying out or executing that command, it was his father who was calling the shots? According to Genesis 11:31, it was the father who took everybody, not Abraham taking everybody. It was the father, and the Bible said the father intended to go to the promised land, Canaan, but he came with everybody around him, came to Haran and decided to dwell there. The question is, what made Haran, Terah, decide to dwell there? Probably he was old.
Yeah, he got old and he got distracted, I believe.
Yeah,
So we have to
so
watch.
now you understand why God will not ask Abraham to go with him, because one, he was going to become a problem in the journey.
Distraction. That's true. We have to watch the distraction. And this also should go to our listeners. If you have a mission or a vision, you have to watch for distractors, because some distractors can distract you from your mission and thwart you. If it could even be your own household people. That is why God was saying, don't go with your kindred or your
That, that
close
is the
core people.
bottom line, Dr. Boison. That's why this test is there. And Dr. Boison, another thing, right? I want you to. The Bible in Genesis 11:31 doesn't mention the fact that they had souls and substance when they were leaving air to
I
go to Haran,
understand.
right? And so in Genesis 12, verse 5, where the author tells us that now Abraham would take his wife and Lot his brother and all their substance that they had gathered and the souls that they had gotten in Haran, then the question becomes, what could have informed the decision to dwell in Haran? Was it because of the commercial pool of Haran, right? Rather than obeying God's word for a final destination, which was Canaan, because they were dealing with familiar space. Are you getting me? Canaan was a foreign country. They didn't know what to expect there. But Haran was within Mesopotamia. They could deal with it culturally. They could understand the dynamics of the place. Was it human for them to do it? Oh, yes. But when you are dealing with God, is that something that God will tolerate? Maybe yes, maybe no. And in this particular test, we are saying that God did not. Why? Didn't the Bible say children are a gift from God? Dr. Boison.
Yes, sir.
So why would children elude the man that God had handpicked to bless?
That is a paradox. Yeah, sometimes we get comfortable in life. Some people leave their homes of abode, their country, and so I'm going to seek greener pastures, and after 2 or 3 years, I will come back and rebuild my land. And many of us came here and we have turned into Papa Samo. We haven't been able to go back because either we got comfortable or we missed our purpose for come here. I mean, some will say, I'm just going to look for capital and go back and set up a business. And you get here and you become comfortable. We have to watch for that comfort zones, where we get to comfort zones and we forget the purpose for which we are traveling.
Dr. Boison, me, Dr. Boison, if I made my decision to come to America and I didn't hear God, that's fine. Hey. But if God comes and says, Robert, I want you to go back to Ghana, and I think of the comfort that America affords,
Provides.
and I decide to drag my feet, right? Do you think that would be an act of obedience towards God?
That wouldn't be obedience.
Thank you. So we are looking at the same situation with Abraham. And you see, it looks something. he had substance, but they became a drug. And it was something. And Dr. Fosse, another thing I want you to understand this Sarah business. And do you realize that when they went, when they went to Canaan, ultimately, right? Abraham was still married to Sarah, and for 10 years they still hadn't given birth, even in the promised land.
I just think that Sarah was sleeping in a different bedroom. That was all.
Say all that you want, but was Abraham
Oh,
doing?
just joking.
Was Abraham doing his nightly, performing his
They were
nightly
living in
duty?
different bedrooms. The woman wasn't lying.
But the reason, Dr. Boyce, this is important is that look at chapter 16. Sarah would suggest to Abraham to go into Hagar.
Yeah, because they've been trying several times. Yeah.
Immediately, Abraham touched Hagar, a child emerged. So
and Hagar too was ovulating around that time. The same time.
Well,
Or maybe he tried several times.
how many years had Abraham lived with Sarah? At least we know 10 years, right? And Sarah didn't ovulate. No,
she was past menopause. I mean, God just intervened.
So that even becomes, so we know that the problem was not Abraham. Do you now get the picture? In terms of the lack of children, it was not Abraham, it was Sarah.
I mean, mathematically, if you look at it that way, okay, you are eliminating and substituting, you are eliminating certain factors in research. Okay,
I am not, Dr. Boyson. The fact has been given that when Sarah suggested to Abraham that Abraham would go into her own handmaid, Hagar,
land.
Hagar,
it just picked like that.
Hagar conceived. So it was a question, it was not a problem of Abraham not being able to cause conception to happen. It has to be the other way around, right? Isn't that so? Again, the arrangement of the text, the presentation of the facts.
Wow, this is profound. This is deep. I mean,
you getting me? That you know something? Yeah, this author is really saying a lot of things, and when you add all of them together, a picture emerges. That listen, the delay could have caused what, and that delay came because of what? Lack of full-fledged obedience.
Yes.
It's as simple as that.
All right, I thought we were going to close by 6:45. I don't know how we were able to go this far. Anyway, we are 15 minutes behind. We've been to time. Thank you very much. And I also want to thank our studio manager, Dr. Setitu, for making this possible and giving us the extra 15 minutes. Pastor Kron, thank you very much. This is a very profound teaching and lesson. Disobedience has its cost. Either you go full out or don't start, because if you're going to go and stop in the middle, we don't know where God is going to put you. And I think when it came to the sacrifice of Saul, I think God said something that not obeying completely is for like witchcraft or something. I forgot that scripture, but Saul didn't obey completely, and he said obedience is better than sacrifice, something like that. Yeah. So either you're obeying completely, or we have to watch it, and we have to be able to discern. And we have said it several times here. I don't know how Abraham couldn't ask God for clarification. God, you want me to go? How about my wife? How about my father and children? I mean, son-in-law or stuff, nephew. What do I do with them? Maybe he didn't ask questions, so we have to ask. If God gives you a dream and tells you to do something, don't be scared of God. He's our Father. Ask for details, Lord. I mean, he might not give you the conclusion, but at least ask for the GPS along the way. Lord, you said this, I don't understand. Can you clarify? Give me some verification. I mean, clarify something. And God is not scared to clarify. I believe Abraham had done his homework very well and said, Lord, okay, so you mentioned kindred, you mentioned country. Country, I understand, but kindred, I live in a family, we are related. What do I do with those? Do I trick them and say, okay, I'm going to see greener pastures and come and take my wife back? We don't know about all that. I don't know the interaction that Abraham had with God. But from reading from the scriptures, we know what happened, that there was some disobedience. And although this man was called a friend of God, the father of faith, he erred somewhere along the line and he paid for it. The fact that you're a believer doesn't mean everything will go smooth for you. You face problems, and you have to watch for the people in the system. Yeah, it's not easy. So we have to be watchful. Thank you very much, Pastor Krom. If the Lord tarries, we'll meet again next week. This is very insightful. It's very teaching to me. I've learned so much that you have to. If you are hearing from God, hear God well. And when you hear Him, complete the task. Don't dilly dally and don't just say I did half and God should be happy with that. No, God is a God of completion. He wants you all out or all low. That's why He says, if you are cold, it's fine with Him. If you are too hot, great. But lukewarmness in between there, God doesn't like lukewarmness. He doesn't like water that is lukewarm. He spew out of His mouth and nose and everywhere. So we have to be watchful. Lord, help us. Father, help us to be obedient. When we get your call, we get your message. Lord, help us to discern your voice among the several voices and obey to the last letter. Thank you very much, Pastor Krom. Have a good evening, and I will see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
C'est mon père, ça me fait bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio. C'est mon père, tu me fais bien tiens. Tu me fais dire non kotu, era one radio.